Hi, it's Sandra here from Creating Spain, and today I want to show you how easy it is to make flowers like these. Now there are two things that you might want to do for this. You might want to use modelling fondant as in, for cake decorating purposes, or you might decide you want to do something like this for just household decoration. And you can do it with either. It really makes no difference. The method is pretty much the same. Slight differences with modelling fondant. But I'm going to show you how I've actually made these flowers, because I kid you not, it's so easy. If you have never done it, unleash your inner 5-year-old. You can have a whale of a time with this. It's so relaxing. I kid you not. I can do this, I can listen to the radio or listen to music or be chatting on the phone to a friend if I've got hands-free, and I can just make loads of these things very, very easily. So I'm going to show you how. Two different styles of things. This rose-like flower is slightly more difficult, but I'm going to start you off with these little flowers here. Now I'm not aiming for realism. I just want fantasy flowers. As long as it looks something like a flower, I'm happy. And what I'm suggesting you use is an air dry clay. Now this is one that I can get from the Chinese shop, cost me all of €2. And it's made by Carioca, which is quite a well-known brand. I did get another brand, but I found it just wasn't very nice. And I ended up using it for something different. But the Carioca one is pretty good. And all I'm going to do is take off a little wedge of this if I can. Now I keep it in its original wrapping, and I have a piece of, it's not cling film, it's the American version that really does stick to itself really well. I can't remember what it's called now. But anyway, I would cover that and then put it into a Ziploc bag, and I squeeze as much of the air out of it as possible and then do the zipper up. Okay, that's the way to keep that stuff fresh, and this has been in my drawer for about, I don't know, a month, 6 weeks, something like that. Anyway, a little bit of this. Now you don't need much in the way of equipment, but what you need, and I have a set here, are just a cheap set of modelling tools. Now, again, I can get these in the Chinese shops, but you can get them online or in toy shops, craft shops, whatever, and they will probably cost you no more than a couple of pounds or a couple of euros. And your clay, you want to just squeeze it and knead it until it's nice and pliable. If it's a little bit dry, it's water-based. Just add a tiny amount of water. You can do that with just a paintbrush, or you can dip your finger in water, or you can just dip that in water. Just a little amount of water, nothing very much, okay? Now you will need some water to stick things together, because modelling clay, air dry clay, gets stuck together with water, so no special adhesives required. And if you want to make them on wires, you will need some wire. Now this is some very old florist wire that I have, and it can be cut with scissors, but since I happen to have some old wire clippers, then I would cut a piece off with a wire clipper. And what you want to do with some needle nose pliers is just take the tip in the very tip there and just fold over just a fraction and squeeze it, not till it's completely shut, but till it's just a small hook. And can you see that? Just about, I think. There we go, might be a bit out of focus by there. Anyway, a little hook on the end of a wire. And what I'm going to do is take a little piece, about the size of a large pea, I guess, and it depends on obviously how big you want your flower to be, but we're going to start off with this size. And out of the tools you will probably find that you have, and I've gone and lost mine. Where have I put it? I've got another one. Ah, there it is. It's over on the other side of the desk. You got one of these things, and that's one end, and that's the other end. You can use either end. It really doesn't matter too much. Just practice and see. Now stick it on the end, like so, and then just squeeze it around the pointed end. Now put a point at the very tip. Mine's coming off already. Put a point at the tip like that and just squeeze it around. Nothing very difficult about that. And wiggle that and it will come out. If you find it sticking to this, just put some corn flour or something like that on your desk that you can dip it into. And a pair of scissors. I've got a pair of fairly sharp pointed scissors. And all I'm going to do is do 5 cuts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They don't have to be precise, and I only take them down a little bit. Okay? And then just put your finger in the centre and just push them out very slightly. So you have that. And then pinch each petal between your thumb and your first finger. Now you don't have to pinch it out a lot, but you just want to get it so that it's flattened out a little bit. Now what I use for the rest of this is a piece of craft foam. It's quite a thick one. Again, you can buy this stuff. If you're a crafter, you probably have it in a drawer somewhere. And I put this onto my piece of craft foam, and I use a ball tool like this, and I could use a smaller one, and I just take it, put it into the center and press down on the petal. So it goes in, it rests in the center of the flower, and just press down on the next petal and just do it 1 or 2 times to flatten the petal out slightly. Okay, there is nothing complicated about doing this. Alright, there we go. Now if you want to, you can leave it like so. Alright, but if you want to make these petals a bit more realistic perhaps, or a little thinner, you can just dab it. Again, with the ball tool, you can just dab the edges of the petal to make them slightly thinner and again more realistic. And if you want to take it a step further, you can take a ball tool. You might want a slightly smaller one, or you can take one of these, and you can literally go from the center to the outside of the petal very gently, just rubbing it from the center to the outside. Don't worry that all your petals are not the same, because imperfections in nature are part of the beauty. Beauty does not have to be total perfection. Here we are, so it's getting to look thinner again. And you can continue doing this and press on the outside if you wish, or you can leave it. Depends how confident you feel. If you press too hard, you'll either tear it or you'll put a hole in it. Again, don't worry, because sometimes that just makes it look that much more realistic. You know, if you completely wreck it, okay, screw it up into a ball and start again. But as long as you're happy, that's fine. Now, if you want to, you can press your petals so that they are more open, like so, but you don't have to. You can, of course, take either a wire or a cotton bud or something, and you can curl your petals in an outward direction or even in an inward direction if you want to do some of those. Alright. With the air dry clay, don't take too long in modelling this because, well, certainly the weather conditions I've got at the moment is summertime. It dries out fairly rapidly. But that's the basic idea of how to make your flower, and it's very, very easy to do. Now when it comes to your stem, dip it in water on the end that has the hook, put it right down the middle till it embeds itself in the clay and you can feel it resisting, and then pinch around the stem like so until you're happy. Again, if it's dry, put your fingers in water and then squeeze. And you can stick this in another lump of clay to stand it up, or you can do what I've done here if you've got a piece of plasticine. Whoops, I didn't stick that one on very well, did I? If you've got a piece of plasticine, you can just stick it in plasticine to allow it to dry. Or if you've got any hanging arrangements, you can hang them upside down. Now with the clay, it's fairly stiff, and you'll find probably that even if you are doing something reasonably large in the way of petals, it will hold its shape and it won't tend to droop. With sugar fondant, it may well droop a little more. So if you want it to more closed, then you would have to hang it upside down or put it onto some kind of form. You can use the backs of spoons. I have a load of plastic coffee spoons, things like that, which I use from time to time. But I think this is a great way of practicing your fondant flowers. And it does make life a lot easier when you have a rough idea of what you're going to do. So if you do them in clay and then you keep them and you pull them out every now and again when you want to do fondant flowers, think, oh yeah, I can do that shape, I can do that shape. Now, the other thing you can do is vary the shape of the petals a bit, quite simply, and I'll show you how to do that. Stick this on here. You don't have to actually even squeeze that all the way to the end. You know, it's choice. Yeah, it's your flowers. You can do what you like. Now this one has got the 5 indents ready made, so that helps you even further. Push them out like so. And what I'm going to do with these, I'm going to flatten them first, like that. And then pinch the tips together. Pinch the edges so that they are rather pointed. Now again, you could leave it like that if you wanted to, or you can flatten them out and you can use whatever ball size you are comfortable with. And this will give you more of a sort of star-shaped flower than the other one does. And you can go around again and you can adjust the tips to whatever you like, and you can open up the flower if you want, or you can close it a little bit and have it cupped. It's a personal choice. There we go. I need another piece of wire. Now generally what I do is I take one strip and I cut these in one go, and then I just bend the tips in one go. Bend over the top, squeeze together a bit, dip it in the water, and if need be, if these do come out, you can always add a blob of glue, because after all they're clay, they're not designed to be eaten, so it's fine. And pinch around the base to secure it. So there we go, a couple of different flowers there. Slightly different anyway. Now the rose is slightly different in the way that it's made, in that it would be normally rolled. So you want the centre of the rose type flower, and again I need to put the hook in here and there we go, bit of a hook. Dip it in some water and put it in so that it's in the middle and press it around. Now normally with these I would leave it to dry first before continuing any further, but I don't think I've got one which has already got the base on, so I'm just going to have to make the best of it. And I'm going to need a little more clay, so I'll get some more clay from the bag. Yeah, that will do. It's amazing actually how far this stuff goes, because you don't need very much clay per flower. By the time it's thinned out, it's an amazingly small amount. And this is a little dry, so I'm just going to put a little water on there just to make it that much easier to mould, because if it cracks, then you know it's just not very convenient, is it? So give this a bit of a squeeze. It's nice soft stuff. There we go. Lots of different brands of this, and I just suggest that you experiment until you find one that you like, but just make sure it's air drying, because that does make things easier. I'm going to pinch off a few pinches. 1, okay, 9, 10. Now if you're concerned about this drying out, put it under some plastic just to stop it. Take one of the smaller ones that you've got, and it's going to be pretty small, about the size of a pea, and pinch it between your fingers. Preferably make sure your fingers don't have a load of clay on them like mine do at the moment. Now you can either roll this out, or you can do what I tend to do, which is just take a ball tool and start on it with that. And what I do is I go from the centre outwards with these petals. I put water on 2/3 of it, and then I wrap it around my teardrop shape, paying attention to the top of it rather than paying much attention to the bottom. Bottom doesn't matter too much, the top bit does. And you want it to be quite close around the top for the first couple that you do. So again, just squish it between my fingers, and then I use the ball tool. Now the reason I tend to use the ball tool is that I don't have the clay covered by the rolling pin, and I can see how thin or otherwise I've got it. And I'm not even paying much attention to the shape of this because it really doesn't matter. Overlap the first one, like so, and press it around. And you can see, I think, that you're starting to get that rose shape. Now, as you get further out, all you do is you make your petals slightly larger and you don't wrap them around as tightly. You can, if you wish, curl them on the outer edges, especially when you get to the very outer petals. But I really quite like the fact that when I do this with the ball tool, I get this frilled edge, which roses and other petals quite frequently have. You know, they're often not completely symmetrical shapes. So again, around we go. Now this I'm going to keep slightly open, like so. There we are. It's going to become more difficult as I do these because I haven't got my centre already dried out and stuck down properly, so I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't fall off, but we shall see. A bit more flattening out. There we are. And overlap. I'm going to curl that one out a little bit and then squeeze it around the base. Now I can't squeeze too hard, as I said, because I haven't got this one dried in the centre. And you can, if you wish, make that go to a point, you can roll one out and so on and so forth. Now for the next layers, they're only very slightly different, and I'll just show you why. What you do is you overlap the layers as you lay them down. So you want to get something like 3 or 4 petals flattened out in one go. So where you've had the last one overlap, wrap it around part of the way and adhere it, and then instead of putting it around all the way, take your next one, put it inside, and then wrap that one around. And again, you do the same thing with the next petal that you're doing. In actual fact, I think this is enough for this particular one for the time being. So I would then pinch it around the stem, and my flower is done. So the next step is leaving them to dry, and I'm going to show you what I use to do the painting. I use these, which are chroma colours. They are food colouring, okay, and I have a set of 12 that come in these really large bottles. There is, how many mils in there? 118 mils in each of those bottles, 4 fluid ounces for those who don't use metric. Right, now because these are rather large bottles and because they're a bit unwieldy, what I do is I put them into little eyedropper bottles. I buy these bottles online, I buy them in bulk because I find them so useful, but I put them into the little eyedropper bottles, and then I use a pen, an alcohol marker, just to mark the top with something approximating the colour, so I know whether I got a red, a blue, or a pink, or a green, or a black that I'm picking up. And then I can use these quite easily. Now, the other thing that I use is an airbrush. Hand painting flowers is not my idea of fun. It's quite a long process, and it's probably fine if you've got a load of powdered food colouring type things, and I don't. And I don't intend to buy anymore because, quite honestly, I have so many different forms of paints. But I do have several airbrushes. Oops, that'll do a lot of good. Okay, now this is the one that I use for my food colouring use. It's dedicated solely to food colouring. And this is sold as a beauty airbrush. And I don't use it as that because I don't have any airbrush makeup to use anyway. I very seldom wear makeup, but this is great if you just want a nice, quick, easy way of airbrushing your flowers that doesn't take forever and ever to clean up, and you can use food colourings in it quite happily. And because it's food colouring, it's not going to bung your airbrush up. You don't have to spend ages cleaning it. It's great, you know, it's a nice quick job, and it's not very noisy. If I switch this on, that's it. It's low pressure so that the dyes don't go absolutely everywhere. Although, having said that, because I have my camera here, I'm not putting anything in here because it will go into the air, and I don't want my nice new camera to get a dirty lens. And it doesn't have a cover over it. So all you do is you put a few drops of your colouring in there, pull back, switch it on, and okay, I've got air going now, but you just do that sort of thing, and the colour comes out, and it will take you all of about 5 minutes to suss out how to get the effects that you want because it's so easy to use. Now what I do when I do that, I have a plastic table mat which is about 1 metre square, and I put that over my table to protect the surfaces because, it is dye or food colouring, and it will go over your table. You won't even be able to see it. The chances are you can't even see it unless you wipe it with a wet cloth and they think, oh heck, there's a lot of dye on there. So do cover your work surface if you're going to do that. But it makes a very quick job of colouring your flowers, and you can get nice blended colours, a nice natural effect, and it's great. Now, regards to the centre of these flowers, I haven't done it, but all you need to do is to make your centres out of tiny little balls of clay. To be honest, you could even put beads in there if you want to, and if you're using clay, you can obviously use glue. So, the wonder of the food colouring is that not only can I use it on the clay, I can obviously use it on fondant icing. And I do have some flowers that I have done and coloured previously. So I'm just going to go get those to show you. Right, so here are some flowers. I've not finished them off completely, but here's some flowers that I've made with fondant. And if I pick this one out here, you can see that the petals are very delicate and nicely tinted from orange to red. Okay, and that was done with the same food colouring, and the only difference is I was using fondant for my modelling and not modelling clay. So I've got a few different things here. This one I have put onto a, now what are they called? Cake pop stalk. Okay, so you can use those. Now if you're making fondant flowers, you can't put this kind of wire directly into your cake. What you would do is you'd use a drinking straw to put into the cake, and then you put the wire into the drinking straw. So you can do it that way, or you can use proper food grade supports to put them in. I don't have the proper food grade supports and I'm not about to buy them. But this is just a selection of flowers that I've made that I'm going to be doing for a cake for a friend. What I did do was I coloured my fondant with a little bit of colouring first. So I did a few in white, I did a few in blue, a few in yellow, whatever. So the base colour was there, and then I just used the airbrush to do the shading and so on and so forth, and to give it a lot more depth in colour. I don't have any on there which have just got the flat colour, I think, apart from maybe this one. This is just a bud and that's just a flat colour. But it makes a surprising difference if you do airbrush and get the variation in the tones. The flat colour, it just looks flat when it's done. So the airbrushing is a great way of sorting that out. Now the other thing, the difference with fondant obviously is that when you're adding your petals, you need to be able to stick those petals together, and water doesn't quite do it. What you want is some edible glue, and the easiest way of making edible glue is to get a little piece of your fondant and to water it down so that it is a syrupy consistency, and then you can use that as a glue and it's fine. Don't have to buy special edible glue or anything else. Now if you're making flowers out of fondant rather than gum paste, or sugar paste I should say, there is a difference. The normal fondant, the roll-out fondant that you buy, will not make flowers like this go really hard. What you need to do is add Tylose powder to it. If you go into any Sugarcraft store, you will find Tylose powder under some form or other. If you ask the owner of the store and say you want something to add to fondant to make it go hard, they'll dish up the powder for you. And use a minute quantity. It's something like half a teaspoon or 1 teaspoon to a whole block of fondant that you might buy in a shop. I actually made my own fondant this time, and it's very easy to make. And I just happened to make it because I happened to have the ingredients to make it around, and I thought, well, I can flavour my own fondant. So these actually are lemon flavoured. Not that I can smell it, but they are lemon flavoured. But have some fun playing around with your modelling, and you will be surprised at what you can do.